Greetings. My name is Neil, and I'm the man behind A Kingdom Ablaze Last Man Standing. It's been an honor to narrate for the past 8 videos my story. It took a lot of editing, time, but overall it was really fun. But for my ninth video, I want to do something different. I want to answer 3 questions. Number one is, how did I come up with the story, or how did it all begin? Number two, what are my plans for the future? And number three, what have I learned in this experience? So let's begin. Now, to start off, and how it all began, we need to go back 2 years ago, on May 28th, 2021. Yes, I remember exact dates. Don't get me wrong. I was just sitting at home. I had nothing else to do. The school year had recently ended, and I thought, why not do something that passes the time? And I recall having a notes app on my phone, and so I thought, why not draw something on the notes app and see what can this lead to? And so I started drawing this person on this notes. And so after a few minutes, I eventually succeeded. And what I did is I actually remember posting this art on Discord for my friends to see. They thought it was really good. It's really great. And I didn't really think much of it. In fact, I actually have a picture of that art from 2 years ago. Here it is. And so it wasn't until 4 months later, in early September, when I found myself in front of a computer screen. It was online class back then, and it was economics class at that time. And for context, my economics teacher is also my Filipino teacher. And so in the middle of the lesson, I recall that she mentioned that she wanted to give us an activity in the future where she wants us to make a story which we will act out. And so she wants us to start making this story early. I thought, I had this art from a few months ago. Why not make this man the main character of my story? And so I already had an idea, and I was literally blank, as in I had no idea what to do next. So I spent the past 6 to 7 months preparing this story, and it was Tagalog, so I was just typing it out in Tagalog. And in fact, I want to show you a script right here which I made from almost a year ago. It's pretty long. You can see the Tagalog dialogues, and the script, it's very long, 35 pages, you see. And also, when I made this story, I also had my best friend make a story too. And so fast forward to February 2022, and where our Filipino teacher reminded us to pass this story before we can act it out. So what we did is we both passed our story previews into the class, to the online classroom app thing. And so we saw each other's stories, and we started viewing the documents, and we already had an idea on how we would act it out. So a few weeks later, on March, this story that my best friend made got acted out throughout a few days. And there wasn't any time, unfortunately, there wasn't any time for my story to be acted out. Number one, because the story that my best friend made is too long. I think it's like 40, 50 pages. Number two, it was nearing the end of the school year, so we just don't have the time. And I thought in the back of my mind that this story still has potential. Um, I think this story needs to improve. And so I just kept that at the back of my mind and I started improving the story. So I spent the next almost 1.5 years improving the story. I was, I recall every few days making art, and then I would post this art on Discord for my friends to see. Um, they would think it's great. Um, this is just a part of my story. I think it's a really good idea that I'll show you some of these art pieces because whenever I look at them, it kind of feels like looking to the past. It kind of feels like you're seeing one thing, which is an idea, become a reality. And so I started. I kept improving the story until a few months later, in October 2022. The story lore is 1 year old. I remember that when I celebrated 1 year old in my story, at the story development, the I just felt happy, and I was great about my progress and achievement. And so, once I had a rough idea on how this first story would go, I'm saying first because I want to talk about my plans for the future, which is the second story which I will make. So I have the second story in mind, and so I kicked off the development of the second story on October. And however, that didn't really move off right away. Number one, because I was still working on the first story. So once I had an idea about the second story, I just put it away for a moment. Fast forward to July 2023. One night, I was working on the computer. I was typing it out. I was typing out the first story on Quotev. In fact, the typing of the first story on Quotev took me a few months. And so when I was finally done, I published it, and I just felt happy about it that I now have a story to tell people, and I might also have a chance to get my story popular, if you will. And so fast forward to September 2023, and we've now come to the point where I went from posting my story on the internet on Quotev to actually telling the story myself on YouTube. And that's eventually where we got to today. So I want to answer the next part of the question, the second question, which is, what are my plans for the future? Well, I want to talk about my second story, which my plan is, if the first story is like 12,000 words, yes, I checked, I want to make the second story 10 times larger, so around 100,000 words, so like a very long novel. In fact, I actually have a text of the prologue which I'm gonna read. After the kingdom of Wold was obliterated by its destruction and evil leader, peace reigned. All because of Knight Admiral Proximus, the greatest battle in its history was a victory. He would be its army's great leader. His battles were victorious, even if big or small. The entire kingdom declares him honest and loyal. So many followers looked up to him, including Edward Kingston. His life was falling apart the moment he was at his happiest. He knew that he had to keep himself happy. The true strength in him is having a good imagination. How he imagined he could live an important life. The next thing he knew, his imagination turns into a reality. The next thing he knew, he was now guarding the legacy of the kingdom's most important people. Life is a blessing, but also a curse. So that's what the second story is about. And I also want to continue working when I have time to hopefully beat writer's block and try to work on the second story. In fact, I already have a first chapter done on the second story. Now, to answer the final question, what have I learned from this experience? I can say I've learned three things. Number one, everyone has their own unique talent, and that we should be able to express it with confidence. Number two, things take time. Good things take time. You don't expect a 12,000 word story to be written for you overnight. For me, it took 2 years to write the first story. So I can say patience really makes things win. You should be patient so that you can see fruit bear. And number three, you should be able to have fun, be happy, and overall, you should be able to fulfill your dreams. Um, I managed to overcome the back the thing that is in the back of my mind, which is that this story can do better, and indeed, it became the best for me. So that's gonna be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. See you.